Tim, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what we should know and what brings you to this conversation.
Okay, I am from South Bend, and there's a song about a child comes into the world in the normal way, which I did not. A combination of lack of oxygen led to a diagnosis later of cerebral palsy. I was also told I wouldn't live to be any more than 5 years old and should be put in an institution in the meantime. By the time I was 5, I had apparently contracted polio.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I had the usual childhood stuff of living in hospitals.
Oh.
When I was in 4th grade, more or less, our family moved from one side of town to the other. I had been brought up in the Presbyterian church that my great-grandfather very likely built. He built most of the near northeast side of the city. He was a
Wow.
contractor.
That's awesome.
Yes. And we started going to a small church. And at that time, things didn't mean much to me. But as I grew older and changed, I learned the meaning of a term I now use to describe myself, a recovering fundamentalist. I started in the music school, but switched to history because I wanted to study a wider curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, I got into the emerging program in religious studies that was offered there.
So tell me, I'm good with that. Tell me a couple of your hobbies and what your world looks like now.
Okay. When I graduated from school, one of my hobbies, which was photography, became my profession for a while. And I pursued that for several years until digital began to make its inroads.
Mm-hmm.
At which point I met a young lady named Sherry. Um, she sang in the church choir, as did I. And
A classic
she's,
story.
yes, it's a classic story. Uh, One day she said she had received a job offer interview in Indianapolis, and I forget just what the pretense was, but I went along with her. We had been going out for a while at this point. On the way home from that interview, which was in Castleton, and in fact, perhaps driving right past St. Peter's on Keystone Parkway to get back north,
Wow.
we came to realize that if she got that job, we did not want to be apart.
A good realization.
A good realization. And we were married soon thereafter and promptly moved to Dayton, where I entered seminary.
Mm-hmm.
And after finishing seminary, I went on to Dallas to enroll at Southern Methodist University's graduate program in religious studies.
Yep. And I can tell you that Tim and Sherry, well, mostly Tim really likes the trains. You have a passion for trains. And then there was a stint with firefighting. Let's talk about that for a second.
Oh, okay. When I got out of school, uh, I lived in a small township near South Bend, and they had a volunteer fire department. And I started by joining as a photographer, using that other hobby again,
Yeah.
and slowly became a little bit more involved in some of the things they felt I should know how to do in case something went really wrong.
Right. That's fair.
Um, and I did that for quite a while. Since seminary, I've been working in academia. I am now of a ripe old age to be retired from being a professor of religious studies, which includes teaching history, church history, anthropology, and even Latin.
Imagine that.
Yes.
Tim is always the first to tell me when I need to work on a translation or when I've missed a key historical detail, which happens reasonably often. And I'm always appreciative because there is too much in the scriptures, period, to get it all in every week or even every reading. So it is great to have someone like Tim sitting in the congregation and sharing wisdom about what's underneath the text or what historical context sets up the story. So I'm absolutely grateful for that. It's one of the reasons why I wanted you to be a part of one of these conversations.
I have also continued working on a side job, a part-time job for the United Methodists in their disability ministries groups.
Yep. Yep. A ministry that at least in the United Church of Christ, has been highlighted during this pandemic. Because if I understand correctly, many of the things that people in the advocacy groups for those living with disabilities have asked for years are now becoming more commonplace. And it's not the greatest path to that type of justice or reform. And it also gets us a step closer. So I wonder if that's been your experience.
Yes, that's been my experience, and not just me, as you mentioned. Um, a lot of us are asking why 10, 15 years ago we asked for these accommodations and we were told, well, that's impossible. And now it's the everyday operation.
Yeah, yeah. Can you give a specific example for those who might not be thinking about what those are?
Uh, Zoom meetings or other meetings for committees.
Yeah, not having to drive to a church is a big deal. Being able to participate online.
Yes, especially when you're not really comfortable driving all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Remote services, such as nearly every church is doing now, makes it possible for people who just aren't quite up to making the trip to a church or whose church has accessibility problems
Mhm.
to attend. Of course, I also enjoy having the chance to visit some of my seminary friends in their churches
Yep.
on Sunday.
Much more accessibility. Yeah.
Yes.
So what I love about these conversations is they always leave us wanting something. So I am gonna say you all have only heard a little bit of Tim. There are many, many more layers to his life and experience, and this is just an introduction. So we'll leave it at that, and hopefully, if you have questions or thoughts or curiosities that might parallel Tim's experiences or some of his different work areas, by all means, contact him.